In project leadership, there's one critical skill that really separates the masters from, well, the survivors. It's all about moving beyond just planning for a crisis and actually acting to prevent one. So, in this explainer, we're going to dive into the architecture of action, how you build that bridge from a plan on paper to a project saved in reality.
Okay, let's just kick things off with a question that I'm sure keeps a lot of project managers up at night. How is it possible that you can have a perfect plan? I'm talking a 200-page risk register, flawless heat maps, all the data in the world, and still watch your project completely and totally collapse. We're going to find the definitive answer by the time we're done here.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It captures a classic pitfall, the inaction trap. This is where a team does brilliant work identifying a risk, they design the perfect solution, and then they just stop. The document itself is treated as the finished product. The plan becomes the goal instead of the action it was supposed to trigger. And this is the process we absolutely have to master. Implementing risk responses is where the rubber meets the road. It's the bridge that connects the calm, strategic world of planning to the high-pressure, messy reality of execution. It's how we make sure our plans actually, happen.
So let's dive into our first section and see how mastering this process really requires a fundamental shift in your role as a project manager. You have to evolve from being a simple analyst into something much more dynamic, much more active.
So what's really interesting here is the shift in focus. On one hand, you've got the analyst who documents problems, but on the other, the orchestrator ensures someone is actually solving them. The analyst creates a plan, the orchestrator unifies the entire project system to act on that plan, making absolutely sure that the assigned risk owners aren't just aware of the risk, but are actually taking action.
And if you don't have that active coordination, you get what's called a watermelon project. It's a great visual, right? All your status reports look bright green on the outside. Everything looks healthy, but just beneath the surface, all these unmanaged risks are festering, turning the core of your project a deep, deep red. The orchestrator's job is to crack that thing open and make sure the inside matches the outside.
So how do you become that orchestrator? Well, it's not about just winging it, that's for sure. You need a playbook for action, and that playbook has to be built on the right information and the right tools. Okay, so before you can even think about acting, you need these 3 key inputs. First up, the risk management plan. That's your rulebook. It defines how much risk your stakeholders can stomach. Then you've got the risk register. Think of this as your tactical hit list. It details the response and, most importantly, who owns it. And finally, lessons learned. This is your secret weapon. It shows what's worked and, maybe more importantly, what hasn't on projects in the past. I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Accountability is everything. A risk response without a name next to it isn't a plan. It's just a wish, floating around in the air, waiting for someone else to come along and deal with it. And this is how you turn all that data into coordinated action. You're going to use expert judgment to make sure the plan is still valid, because things change, right? You'll use your influencing skills to get action from people you don't directly manage. And you'll use your project management information system, your PMIS, think tools like Jira or Asana, to build these risk activities directly into the schedule. That way, they aren't some extra work. They are the work. All right, so let's move on. When you successfully implement a response, how does that actually change the reality of your project? The short answer is, when you take action, it leaves a trail. Seriously, when you truly implement a response, the results are visible. They're tangible. Real action leaves fingerprints all over your project documents and plans. This is the proof that risk management is a living, breathing activity, not just some one-and-done exercise you did at the start of the project. This table is a perfect example. So before, we had a high probability risk. Our lead developer might resign. So what did we do? We took action, we trained a backup. While the trigger occurred, the developer resigned, and we activated our plan. Look at the status now. Threat neutralized. But, and this is key, notice the new risks our action created. There's a secondary risk. That's a new risk caused directly by our response that the backup's old tasks are now unassigned. And there's a residual risk, a little piece of the original threat left over that the new lead still has a learning curve. This is what active, transparent risk management really looks like. And that brings us to our final and most important section. We are now ready to close the loop and give you the definitive answer to that question we started with. So remember where we started? With this huge paradox of perfect plans leading to total project failure? The team did all the analysis, they documented everything perfectly, and yet the moment a real threat showed up, the whole project just fell apart. Why? The answer is so simple, but it is so powerful.
the execution gap. It's the failure to build that bridge between planning and doing. It is the vast, empty chasm between a beautiful plan on paper and a single, actual hammer swing in reality. So if you want to bridge that gap, you need to focus on these 3 pillars of mastery. First, action over paperwork, always. Your project's resilience is built by what you do, not what you write down. Second, demands clear ownership. It is absolutely non-negotiable. And third, manage the ripple effect. Understand that every action has consequences, and be ready for them.
Let's just end with this thought. Your value isn't just in organizing information. That's the work of a librarian. Your true value as a leader is in driving action, inspiring execution, and building that bridge that turns a plan on paper into a successful project in the real world.